Today on the show, we'll be talking about the Sega Genesis Mini and our favorite games on it.
We're also going to be talking about the Switch Lite and what we think about it.
And finally, we're going to wrap up with one of the best Zelda games of all time, in my opinion, Zelda Link's Awakening, on today's Power Talk. Power Talk. Welcome back to another episode of Power Talk. With you today once again is the lovely RGM, Joshua Marr. RGM, say hello.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Nostalgia Kid 84 once again here with you. Power Talk, such a show that has been near and dear to my heart for many years. Glad to be back with you in some form. We're working towards getting that stage back and getting a full live show back one of these days, but for right now, she's in podcast form, and I'm okay with that. First on the plate today, the Sega Genesis Mini. Josh, I'm pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, I am too. I've owned a lot of the at-games Sega Genesis consoles, and they're fun for the price you pay. They're okay, but they're cheap and they're always lacking in the game department.
Right.
And a lot of times they have like 40 or 50 of the just like homebrew games. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some real love put towards the Sega Genesis with this Mini coming out.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree, and that's something that a couple of things to separate. Obviously, and there's some reviews out there that compare the Sega Genesis Mini and the at games versions. But to you, since you've actually owned some of the at games and played them, what's going to be something that's a huge difference? And at the time of recording this, we're just a few days away from launch of the Sega Genesis Mini, by the way. So, but what to you is the big difference between what's coming out from officially Sega versus the at games?
At games had some good games on it, but it also had a lot of games that just weren't that good. From what I've seen in the list, I've seen games like you got your Sonics on there. And then I've seen Streets of Rage 2. That's a good one. Contra Hardcore. What is it? Contra Hardcore.
Yeah, Contra Hardcore.
Yeah. Castlevania Bloodline. Some really big heavy hitters are going to be on this console. I'm looking at a list now. You've got Golden Axe. You've got Gunstar Heroes. That's one that was never on the at games consoles to my knowledge. Space Harrier 2 is actually pretty good. And they've even got the Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. Those are great games.
Right, I agree.
And just from what I can tell, the quality is going to be so much better with this console. And it's got a great list of games. I mean, if you have this, you really don't have to have an old school console, like original model. You can play some of the best games right here on this Mini, from what I can tell.
Yeah. That's really important, I think, especially if they got the Mega Man, the Wily Wars. I'm not 100% sure if that was an official game. It definitely wasn't released in America. I know that.
I think it was a PAL game. It was released on the Mega Drive only, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and it's Mega Man 3, I think, for the NES, but it was, like you said, for the PAL only. And I pulled up the list of games here myself and looking at it. Definitely a great list of games by far. Slaughters the at games versions
big time.
Of the Sega. And another thing you mentioned, you said quality. I know from some of the videos I've seen, people were saying how the Sega Genesis Mini official one is actually it's smaller than the at games ones, but it's actually heavier than the at games one. So you can already tell by just holding the thing and looking at it, its build quality is a little bit better.
I'm not surprised. The at games ones that I had several. The console will be about this big, and the circuit board would be like that big on the inside. And one of the main issues with those at games is the controllers it comes with. It comes with these crappy wireless controllers, and from what I've seen, the Genesis that's coming out is going to have like legit Sega Genesis wired controllers, which will be nice. Hopefully they're more than 3 feet long though. So
right. Yeah, I'm hoping so as well. But you're right, the wired controllers are going to be a lot better than those the at games. Really light and cheap crap. We'll just call it. But the major advantage over the official release than the at games, of course, is going to be the emulation, and we've heard that M2 emulation is did the M2 did the emulation for the official Sega Genesis Mini, and they are very well known for their work on emulation. How well that they do, emulate a game. They put pride. They have a lot of pride into the work, and that's one thing that I'm really excited about. And some early reviews are, of course, saying that all these games are running perfect, especially for them being in HD. They run really, really well, and they're not really finding any mistakes on them. And that's kind of what we were hoping for. And that's going to be the main difference between the ACT games. I know a lot of people have hounded me in the forums because I was like, I'm really excited, and everybody's like, oh, why? We've had 100 of these things, and they all suck. Well, this one's different. So. Yeah, this one's different. The emulation is going to be spot on. There's not going to be any tapping the A button, and then you wait 1 or 2 seconds later, and then you see on the screen Sonic actually jumping. This time, it's going to be a legit response time. Everything's going to work well together, and the music's going to be spot on. It's going to be really good. So, and I've also read there's some differences, in like some of the Sonic games, for instance. Like earlier versions of the Sonic games had a little bit of different music than the later versions of the Sonic games and that was because the Sega, as they kept releasing their consoles or re-releasing their consoles, they kept updating their sound chips.
Yeah, so they did that a lot.
Yeah, so it kind of made some of their games sound different, and they've included, I think, the later versions of the music on these games. Nice. So more so than the earlier version. So that's just something that I thought was an interesting note, something noteworthy to talk about. And of course, like you were mentioning, some of these games are absolutely out of this world. Some of the best Sega games of all time.
Oh yeah,
you got
Strider is on there.
Strider, Shinobi, Castlevania Bloodlines, which I'm glad they included that because that's not an easy game to come by these days. It's definitely one of the harder games to come by. And probably not one of the best Castlevanias, but definitely a good game to have.
Yeah, if you're a Castlevania fan, it's definitely worth playing.
Yeah, I agree.
And, I'm waiting to see when people start doing the comparisons. Once this thing comes out, they're gonna take like the ACT games emulation and compare it side by side, and you might be able to hear like some major differences in the music. Because the ACT games are horrible with the music and the emulation with that, but.
That's what I'm so excited about this. When it's an official release, music's going to be on par, and the music's a really big part for me in video games. That's one of the things that gives me nostalgia for video games is the music, and it's one of the things that helps me relive my memories. Is I can hear that music, and it actually puts me in place. It puts me in mind of where I was at the time I played it.
Takes you back in time when you hear certain tunes.
Yeah. That's why. That to me is really important, and I'm glad that M2 emulation is the ones who got a hold of this to do it. And
it's just about time Sega got some love with the, Nintendo has been showing a lot of love to their systems with the, the NES Classic and the SNES Classic, but we haven't had much for Sega outside of those cheap ACT games consoles. So I'm pretty happy about it. I do have like a small portable ACT game system that's pretty cool, but it'd be nice to have something just super well made and well designed and that actually emulates well. So
right, yeah, I agree. List of good games on here. It's good emulation. Everything's looking good about it. So I'm glad it's coming out. I'm glad to see it. Pretty happy about it. It's got a good price point for as many games as it has on it as well. I believe it is time to wrap up this segment. And as you can hear, the little boy has run in the room, so it's a perfect time to end this segment and segue straight into our next one, which is, Josh, I'll let you start this one off with the Nintendo Switch Lite.
Daddy.
Yes, baby.
All right, guys. So we all know, we've heard rumors for the past several months that Nintendo will be releasing a Switch Mini possibly, or Switch Pro, and then they finally announced that they're going to release a Switch Mini, or Switch Lite is what it's officially called. And from what I've seen, this console is not as small as I was hoping for it to be, but it's still a great deal smaller than the original Switch. And things to note about it, it's not going to be able to be docked And I'm really interested to get my hands on it. I'm probably going to pick one up once the price drops. I'll probably wait a few months and see if the price drops. If it doesn't drop, then I'll just wait and make sure they got all the bugs worked out of it. But I'm pretty excited about it because I mostly play my Switch on the go. So if I could leave my main Switch at home and then just bring my portable one with me or my Lite with me, that would be great. Better battery life, runs cooler, and they've probably ironed out a lot of the issues of the original Switch. So I'm pretty excited to give that a try. But what's your thoughts on it, Nate?
Well, I've already pre-ordered one for my son.
Oh, dang.
Well, he doesn't know it yet. He's standing here, but hopefully he's still young. He just turned 3 last week, so he's not in tune to everything we're saying just yet. But so he got that for his birthday. That was his big birthday present. I got him Yoshi, Crafted World.
He's gonna like Yoshi.
Yeah. He played. He put 30 hours in on the demo, and that was just just rebeating the first stage over and over and over.
That's a lot of demo playing.
Yeah, no. But anyways, I'm kind of excited about it for the same reason. I play my Switch on the go a lot, and especially with Jensen. He is pretty destructive, and he has already broken 2 of my controllers of the Joy-Con. So I'm hoping this one, the build quality is going to be a little bit better, and it's going to be a little bit more tougher. If he drops it and stuff, it's not going to just chip off like my Switch is now.
You can bet they're going to make some rugged cases for this thing.
Right.
Especially being a portable only mode, companies are going to be making all kind of cases and accessories you can put on it to protect it.
Well, I saw the case, the early I think it was a Hori case, where it actually is form fitted to the Switch Lite, which I really, really like. And it's more of it's kind of like a 3DS in a way. And now that it folds down over top of it.
Yeah, I've seen that
like
one.
The clamshell to protect the screen and everything. And you can just leave it, you can leave the case on it while you play it and everything, which I really like. So the screen is 5.5 inches, whereas the regular Switch is 6.5 inches. And obviously, it's probably going to make the games look a little bit sharper and crisper because it's on a smaller screen. The same screen.
It'll help battery life too, a little bit.
Yeah, and the up battery life I think was 7 hours.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah. So that's nice, and that's really good because guess what? Now we can play the SNES and the NES online.
Yeah.
For a lot longer than what we normally could. For 2.5 hours of gameplay, 3 hours of gameplay is not very long. But
yeah, and I already know the Switch Lite is going to be successful. So the more successful it becomes, you can bet they're going to pretty much phase out the 3DS completely. Would be my guess.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's coming. It's been coming for a long time.
A long time. I mean, the 3DS had a good run, and it still, believe it or not, sells pretty well.
Yeah, it's arguably one of the better. It is the best, probably, handheld console of all time, but it's arguably one of the best consoles of all time just because of that library of games and the access of the virtual console that you had on there.
Oh, yeah. It still had that great virtual console that was initially missing from the Switch. And we still technically don't have it, but we have some form and way of playing games, retro games on the Switch. So,
right, yeah, that's important, especially for guys like us.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely important, for even new gamers to go back and see why we have the games we have today.
Yeah,
we wouldn't have Skyward Sword. I mean, these Breath of the Wilds. We wouldn't have games like that today if it wasn't for the innovation of Nintendo in the past. Every new game they created for the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, or the GameCube, or the Nintendo 64, that were milestones, stepping stones that made the open world games what they are today.
Yeah.
You look at Mario 64, groundbreaking, and what it was.
Still holds up too.
Yeah, one of the best 3D games out there to this day. I would like to. It would be nice to have that game actually remade. I would love to see.
Oh yeah, if they just remastered it on the Switch or something,
remastered it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally buy that.
Yeah. Just
that
to have
Banjo-Kazooie, I'd love to see a remaster of that. So.
Yeah, me too. But that when you think of the innovation, I think that's why it's important, and I think that's another reason why the Switch Lite is even important, is because it's just easier access for younger gamers to be able to get to that SNES and the NES, those retro games that perhaps they wouldn't be able to get any other way.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to take it on the go, which is super important. And that's why I think the Switch Lite is. I mean, I think it's going to be a success too. I mean,
Oh yeah, no doubt. I'm curious if they are going to release the pre-order numbers for the Switch Lite because we already know it's going to be successful. The Switch is successful, and this is just one that's even more portable. Which is kind of one of my minor complaints I have with the Switch was it wasn't quite as portable as I wanted it to be when it initially came out. It still goes everywhere with me because I carry it in my bag, but it's not something you're going to slide in your pocket and,
right.
hop on the train. I mean,
Yeah.
if you disassemble the Joy-Cons and all that, you could. It's just not that comfortable. But so the Switch Lite, I think, is going to help with that portability aspect. And I almost never dock my Switch, so I'm not really worried about the fact that it can't dock. So
I'm right there with you. I almost never dock it either. Even if I'm playing, at home, I'm usually in the couch or the chair next to someone else playing it. You mentioned it made me laugh when you mentioned that you can't carry it in your pocket because, like when I go the doctor,
mm-hmm.
I'm kind of embarrassed to carry in my big old case, with the Switch. And walk in. I loved it if I could just have something in my pocket, slip it out of my pocket, and start playing. That's a be a lot.
You're like 6'2" or 3, so you could probably get away with it put in your pocket.
But. It's all, but on the flip side of that coin, it also looks funny for a 6'3" guy playing a Switch.
True.
Especially a 35-year-old Switch at 6'3". But
hey,
you like what you like. I mean, that's
exactly. And video games aren't like they were in the 90s where it was mostly little kids playing. Now it's
that's true.
Majority of players are all, adults in their 30s
right.
and 40s.
Yeah, that's true. And that's very apparent by all the Nintendo commercials. They load their ads with 35 plus year olds all the time. So
yep.
But anyways, we'll go ahead and wrap that segment up. Yep. And wait a minute. I know you hear that tune once again.
No.
Last week we got Josh with the random question of the day.
You got me. I failed that hard.
Yeah, he didn't get the question right, which was the Castlevania sub-weapons named 305. This week we're going to change things up just a little bit, and it's going to be a Name That Tune, Josh. So this game, since we've been talking about the Sega Genesis Mini, this game does come from the Sega Genesis Mini.
All right.
The song that I'm getting ready to play.
Obviously, that'll at least point me in the right direction.
Yeah, and something else. So it came out in 1994.
94. Okay. So that's kind of a late Genesis release then.
Yes. Okay, Josh.
All right.
Name that tune.
I will try my best.
It's a boss fight.
Oh gosh.
This is music from a boss fight from the Sega Genesis Mini. You got 10 seconds. Oh, that's 10 seconds right there.
What?
Do we have an answer?
I'm torn between Streets of Rage and Contra. That sounds more like a Contra game.
Ding, 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 ding.
Is it Contra?
He won. He got it this week, ladies and gentlemen. It is Contra Hardcore. That is a boss fight.
Awesome.
From Contra Hardcore. One of my favorite games on the Sega Genesis. We actually got that. We had 2 copies of that. My mom had bought me a copy for Christmas, and then I traded for another copy later on down the road. I don't know why.
I still don't have that one.
I really enjoyed that game. It was a fun game. I always enjoyed playing the wolf and the robot. That's the 2 characters. Me and my brother would both play. He usually played the wolf, and I usually played the robot. It's a very, very hard game.
I've played it a lot on emulation, but I don't own the game, unfortunately. But...
yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. On to our last segment here, and
okie dokie.
Probably one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely. I always say that this kind of goes back and forth between my top 1 and 2 spot for my Zelda games. Zelda: Link's Awakening.
Okay.
Usually I sometimes I switch it back and forth between a Link to the Past being my number 1 Zelda game of all time. This game was the first game that I beat on my own without my brother's help because I always had it. I played it on the Game Boy and I played it, all by myself all the time. So we was either traveling back and forth between the grocery store, which was 25, 30 minutes away, and I would play it, or I'd sit down next to my dad on the couch, and back then, nothing was backlit, of course.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I had to sit down next to my dad because he would always have his lamp on the couch because he would do little crossword puzzles in the back of the TV guides. So that's why I sat next to him, and that's kind of sentimental to me because my dad and I were never really super close when I was growing up,
Yeah.
and this was a time that I actually got to spend next to him. I guess kind of bonding time.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and it's just an important memory for me because we never were really that close, and even to this day, we're pretty. I mean, we're closer than we were then, but we're not have like the relationship that I have, like say between me and my mom or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just a nice memory for me to have think about me sitting next to him and having that time uh, playing that game next to him. But what separates this Zelda game from me from others is there's a couple of things. Well, one, right off the bat, is the dungeon designs. I really, really love the dungeon designs.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and to me, these dungeons aren't like where you have go into a room and there's a puzzle, you figure out the puzzle, and you go into the next room. Some of these dungeons, the puzzle is the entire dungeon. Like all the puzzles work together to
That's cool that they did it that way.
yeah, to unlock the entire dungeon or to get to advance into the main boss. And so the puzzle works together. That's one thing I really like about this game. Another thing is they added those side-scrolling sections that were kind of like
Yeah.
a head nod to Mario, side-scrolling Mario games, which is really really cool. There's even Goombas in the those
Yeah, that
sections.
was funny.
So it is pretty funny. And this was also for a long time the only Zelda game that you could jump. That's also a notable characteristic that makes this Zelda game a little bit different. Now I know you could jump in Link's Adventure of Link in Zelda 2, but
Yeah.
that was a whole completely different game. It was a
Totally
side-scrolling
different.
game, RPG. So I'm not
Still a
going to
good game
include it.
though.
It is a good game. I know it's one of my. It's a highly underrated game, but
It is. It
it's
gets a
for
lot of unneeded hate, I would say.
I agree with that 100%. But now Link's Awakening was a top-down Zelda that you could jump, and that was very different for a long, long time. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. And then the other huge, huge aspect of this game that I really liked is it actually had a story to me that stands out from any other Zelda game, and because it wasn't just Link has to save Zelda from Ganon, or
If I'm
maybe
not mistaken, Zelda's not even in that game, is she?
no. Well, there is a moment of her in the opening
Oh,
credits,
okay.
and that's it. I believe she's on the ship, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe she's at the. I can't really remember. Now that I think about it, she might not be in that game for at all. But no, you got Marin. Marin, of course, is a memory or a dream figure of the Windfish. The Windfish is made up the whole island, everybody on it, and that's what kind of separates this is this story. It's not really a Mario waking up at the end of Mario 2 and he's just asleep. This is a whole world created by the Windfish, and if you awaken him, of course, all these things are going to go away. So it's kind of sad in that
Yeah.
aspect that Link is battling bad guys who they don't think they're bad guys. They just want to survive on this island they're at. And here you are, Link, the hero. You're thinking you're doing the right thing by killing off these bad guys. These bad guys don't realize they're bad guys because they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And and they're even trying to hint and give clues to Link that hey, you kill us off, everybody dies. Marin dies. Um, you lose everybody on this continent if we die. So it's kind of sad in that aspect. It's very different, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. I mean, it's just so different. It's got the crane game, which I always thought was good, and then another aspect is the side quest. That was one thing I really, really, really enjoyed. So the side quest, where you start off by giving, I believe it's the Kirby doll to um, one of the kids. It's one of the kids there in the first village. You give the Kirby doll to the kid, and they give you a bow. You give the bow to Bow Wow, the little chain chomp from Mario,
Yep.
and he gives you, I think, I can't really remember. You give that bow to somebody, and you get dog food, and you give the dog food to I think an alligator. An alligator gives you some bananas, and you take bananas to a monkey. I mean, it's just kind of fun and silly in that way, but
Fetch
it's a
Quest retro style.
yeah, it's a kind of a different side quest it's really really fun and it's funny. And then of course you got the other one big other side quest is to find all the seashells to and then if the other main side quest of course is finding all the seashells to get the master sword to be able to shoot your sword as a projectile. So it's a really fun game. I mean, I've been rambling this whole time about it because I love the game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I got a lot of memories about it. But Josh, I've not let you talk about it first. I'll give the floor to you for just a minute.
Well, I remember playing it. Obviously back, I had gotten a Game Boy a little bit later, but I remember playing it, and it was, to me, it was graphics wise, it was comparable to the Super Nintendo at the time. So to me, I had come from playing the NES version, Legend of Zelda, the original, and then went to play the Super Nintendo version, and then I got to play the Game Boy version in Link's Awakening, and just the step up from the NES to the game, even the Game Boy version was great graphics wise. And the game itself, I liked all the tie-ins it had with Mario. Um, and it had like you were talking about, it had the ability to let you jump and all that. So it was pretty funny that they had all the Mario tie-ins. And it's a game that I enjoyed playing, but I never got the chance to beat it because the only time I got to play it was when I was at my friend's house and he had it. But it was a game I did enjoy. So, which is why I'm looking forward to the remaster, because I can now just pop it in my Switch and play it, and and see it in a whole new way. And to me, it'd be cool if they put the original as like a bonus content on the remaster one coming out. I think that'd be something cool for the people that haven't got a chance to play the original Link's Awakening.
Yeah, that's an amazing idea. That would be awesome. I actually did a video where I at least put the old sound effects and the old music into
Yeah, I
the
remember watching
trailer.
that. Yeah, that was a pretty epic video. That video deserves more views because that was a good idea to put that together.
Yeah, I'd like for some people to get to experience that in the retro style as well. That's a good idea. And of course, they remade the game in color, and then they kind of made extensions of the game with oracles of ages and the seasons game. And very, very fun game. I mean, totally in the same vein as Link's Awakening. I prefer Link's Awakening to either of those games, but if you want to play another game that's like Link's Awakening, you can pick up those two games or emulate them, as they're kind of a little bit pricey for retro games, but Game Boy games.
Yeah, they are. Anything Zelda is still pricey these days.
Yeah, but fun games. Link's Awakening, great game. I'm kind of worried about it it's going to be short. I know it's going to be easy. It's probably going to be easier than what it was on the Game Boy. Just seems like that's how games are these days to me. They feel a little bit easier, especially the platformer games. But
yeah, most games are now with save states and checkpoints and all that now.
But we can probably blow through the game in a day if you really tried, if you really wanted to. But I would say to people, just kind of take your time with it, enjoy it, play through the game, and let it ride. Just let those moments, take in those moments, and let it play into your future history of loving that game when you look back at it.
All right, so here's a question for you. What do you think, with the release of the remaster of Link's Awakening, what do you think it'll do to the original release on the Game Boy? Do you think it'll make prices drop? Will it raise the prices? It's obviously going to bring a lot more attention to the original Link's Awakening. A lot of people probably haven't heard of that game, a lot of the newer gamers. But what's your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. It could really go either way. It may actually. Okay, so at first it might raise prices because, like you said, it would pique the interest in it. But I think over time, the more people that would get it on Switch, I don't think they'll care about playing it on retro. So it might actually, over time, maybe help the prices slide down just a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, because I think with the release of certain games on the SNES online that Switch has released, I think because those games aren't remasters, they're just copies of the originals. I think it's going to maybe drop prices of some of those games.
Yeah.
People have access to it. But with this being a remaster, I'm curious to see how it affects the prices, being a new same game but redone now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that will do it for this show today, and we appreciate everybody dropping by. Once again, thank you so much for everybody who tunes in. Find us under Super Johnson Brothers on iTunes. Once again, check out Josh's channel on Retro Gaming Maniac. Check out my channel, Nostalgia Kid 84, my other content. And this is going to be a once a week thing. Every Monday, the show is going to drop from now on. Love you guys, much love, and until next time. The power is in your hands.
See you guys later.